Alright, what's up YouTube? This is Simulated Greg and we are back with another Vue.js tutorial. This is somewhat of a continuation of the Vue.js introduction, and we are going to be focusing on a Markdown previewer app. And basically, if you don't know what Markdown is, it's a way to uh, create text but generate HTML. So you can use, if I wanted an H2, I could do two hashtags, and then this would be a header too. Or if I wanted a bold text, I can wrap it in double asterisks, and I get bold text, etc. I'm not going to go over Markdown because that's not the point of this, but what we're going to do is we have a text area where we're inputting our Markdown, and we have a div on the right where our text is being converted into HTML through a library called Markdown.js, and it outputs it into our right side here. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a base HTML document here with just importing Vue, and I have a couple of styles that style the text area and some other things that I'll be using in this video, but that's not the point of this video, so we're not going to cover that. The first thing that we'll definitely need is the actual marked library itself, so we can process our input and have it be converted into actual HTML. So once we got both of those scripts imported, let's go ahead and start our JavaScript. So the first thing we'll start off with is obviously making our new Vue instance, and we'll pass it an object. And like I said before, we need a way to take the value in our text area. So we're going to go ahead and define a variable for that. We'll just call it input, and we'll just set it to blank for now. And let's go ahead and start creating some of our template up here. I'm going to do a entry div tag inside there. We're going to have a text area where we type everything. We'll just keep this to, I don't know, 20 rows. And in order to bind the input value in this text area, we can use a vModel directive and give it the variable we want it to bind the value to. So anything we type in this text area now will be bound to the variable input, which is in our Vue instance data. Now that that's set up, we need to also tell Vue to connect this instance to our entry div. So giving it the element key, we'll define it as hashtag entry, because that is the ID of the div wrapping our mini app here. So now that, let's go ahead and test to make sure this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh, and unexpected identifier, it looks like I forgot a comma over here. Let's go put that in there. Refresh. So as of now, we should be able to type some text in here, and we should be able to reference input from our Vue instance and see that it is in here. And it is, so that's good. We are getting the actual input. Now that we have that part settled, we're going to create what's called a filter in the Vue.js world, and we'll call this just Markdown. And what we do is we pass it a function, and that function is given an initial value that we pass in from our interpolation methods, and that kind of doesn't make sense at first, but I will definitely explain this a little bit further. So I'm just going to call this value, and we are going to return marked val. Now this mark represents the actual Markdown.js library, and now we're going to actually bind our output to our div. So we can do that by using double angle bracket or double handlebar syntax, and we can pipe it through our filter. Now one thing, if you're familiar with Markdown, is that this actually can create problems because the marked library is actually producing HTML, but Vue internally is converting everything to a string. If there's HTML tags, it's automatically escaping them because of security, and one of those security things that it's trying to prevent is an XSS attack, which I'm not going to get into, but in order to actually bind real HTML, what we can do is do a triple mustache syntax, and once we go ahead and save, refresh, we can actually see that everything is actually rendering as expected. So coming back to our code, just to further explain this some more, first we're creating our Vue instance. We're telling it to bind it to the ID entry div, which is right here. So inside we have access to our text area, and we have access to our div where we're outputting our markdown. First, we're taking the value of our text area and storing it into the input data, which gets passed back into our Vue instance. And then what we're doing is taking that same input and binding it to our div on the right side, but we're first piping it through a filter that we created here, MD. So this filter is a function that takes in a value, which is our input. So it takes in everything we put in our text area and returns a generated marked down HTML output using the marked library. So that is a pretty simple example of how to use filters in Vue. They are really just kind of really up to you how you want to use them. There are some built-in filters that will be covered throughout videos. I don't think there will be a specific video on those, but if you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to subscribe, as there will be many more Vue tutorials to come, and I will catch you in the next one.